welcome everyone to Insights. I'm Nnamdi Adigbo. I'm again flying solo this week as Elizabeth Omori is unavoidably absent. But not to worry, I have a couple of promising conversations lined up. First off is a conversation on Nigeria's transition to computer-based testing format, that is the CBT model for all academic examinations within the nation's education sector. We would also be looking at some of the reasons Nigerians continue to fall prey to Ponzi schemes despite their failures and vulnerabilities. That's it. Let's get started.
Whatever the issues are,
the National Assembly is constitutionally empowered to scrutinize,
however complex or intricate.
We have involved all the academia, the members of the academia. We have involved the academies.
Be it government policies or in fact any issue of public concern.
Our job is to help you gain clarity and make sense of it all.
This is not really healthy for our democracy.
There's a lot of agreements in terms of who has been in power longest and who becomes the governor of the state.
It's also in the quality of food being consumed.
After all, perception is insight.
And gaining understanding is also getting insight.
We're beginning with Nigeria's ambitious plan to digitize all academic examinations by 2027 with the goal of eliminating paper-based tests and transiting entirely to computer-based testing, or should I say CBT model. Authorities argue the move will curb exam malpractices and accelerate the modernization of the education center. Yet, there are questions that linger, of course. Is the country making progress since we began the shift? Will the CBT format bridge gaps in exam credibility and deepen existing inequalities, in access to technology? And there are more questions. For instance, does the CBT format hold the key to fairer, more secure examinations, or do we run the risk of leaving millions of students behind? Well, these are some of the questions that I hope my guests will put in proper perspective as we engage in this conversation. My guest is Ainel, I beg your pardon, Hamisu Jafaru. Is that correct?
Yeah, Haniel Hamisu Jafaru.
Wonderful. Ainel is an IT and cybersecurity expert. He is also the executive director, HTC Academy. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
The shift to CBT format has already begun with exams like the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, having the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Exam now. It's called the UTME. We also know the West African Examination Council, WAEC, and the Senior School Certificate Examination, that is for private candidates, are already adopting the CBT format. Do you think this is a chance to perhaps or clearly end cheating scandals and outdated systems? Can technology truly rescue exam integrity in Nigeria?
To a large extent, technology is one area that helps to bring about integrity. So, when it has to do with the integrity of the exams, technology can help to mitigate that. Nothing can be completely eliminated, but it can be drastically mitigated and reduced to its barest minimum. There will still be the human loopholes and the human insecurity that because human will still interface with this technology. So
True.
You can't hide away or shy away from the fact that some humans can be compromised. But beyond that, I think to a large extent it's a good step in the right direction. Though there are concerns, we can't shy away from some of these concerns.
Before you go on to tell us about your concerns, when you say it's a step in the right direction, take off with the Unified Tertiary, that's the UTME, as your case study, and use that to buttress your point as being a step in the right direction.
Okay, so the numbers of persons that have been writing JAM, we've seen since they started the CBT-based test in 2013, 2012, there's been a progressive approach to it, and now we are seeing a fully automated CBT-based exams. So, and it's even a good thing that the UTME registrar is even the one championing the committee for this project. So it's a good thing, and he already has experience in that way. So he can just bring forth some of the gaps that they experience, more of like a mentor-mentee kind of thing, so that a mentee would not be able to follow the path of a mentor and fail. So the registrar, being the chair of that committee, would help in ensuring that there is success in it. But why I mentioned the fact that it's a right step.
Yes.
It's a step in the right direction is the fact that globally, most exams, especially from secondary school level upwards, are using digital means of conducting. Digitized largely. They are using digital means of technology to conduct their exams, and we going that path would mean that we are also progressing. So we can't exempt ourselves from the progress of the world. We have to ensure that we are part of the world system. If not, we will begin to have
we'll be left behind.
Beyond that, we'll begin to have issues with certification when it has to do with international authorities, because as it stands now, some exam, WAEC is an exam known globally, NECO is an exam known globally, but if we continue to remain in this archaic system of manual exams, paper-based exams, the tendency for some of these accreditation bodies globally to begin to look at the possibility of dropping Nigeria's exam, even though it's a national exam, it can begin to raise concerns for them. So now that we're digitizing it, it's easier for audit, it's easier for whatsoever system they want to use to checkmate or check fraud. So it's a good step in the right direction.
Great, but you did talk about concerns, and we're going to talk about some of these concerns. But I'd like to tell you about an online survey that NTA conducted quite recently, and I'd like to share the results with you. You know, we asked Nigerians a question. We asked them what they think about this ambitious transition to CBT format for all examinations with a deadline or a target deadline of 2027. The polls had 3 options. And interestingly, the result showed Nigeria's divided stance on the 2027 transition target. You know, with 50%, I beg your pardon, 50%, that's half of the respondents backing the policy only if certain issues, they talked about issues like power gaps, issues like device affordability, and even teacher training, and that these issues should be placed at the top of the agenda. And that way they can only then would they support the transition to CBT formats. And then 37.8% of our respondents, who are citizens of course, championed the shift, confident that it would curb cheating and streamline assessments like you've just talked about. However, there was this 12.2%, that feared that it risks sidelining vulnerable students in tech-poor regions, inferring that it could easily become, a digital divide in disguise. How then do we address, the key findings of this, like we did in this NTA survey? We showed that, yes, optimism may lead or leads, but there is still skepticism, one which underscores the high stake of balancing innovation with equity.
Okay, so let me start from the last group of persons that were concerned.
The 12.2.
The 12.2, they were concerned about a way of hiding behind technology to shy away from the digital divide. The truth of the matter is that it's not far fresh from the truth. There is that digital divide which is obvious, and those in the rural area have largely been sidelined when it has to do with technology. So what my suggestion would be is that it's not for us to shed away the policy and the project. Instead, is to look for a way to manage that situation. So what we can do is to integrate digital technology as a subject in schools, thereby ensuring that mandating it, not just integrating it, mandating it, thereby ensuring that that digital divide is closed. And those in the rural area, even though they're in the rural area, they will still be able to see this technology, interact with this technology, and that will not be a concern again for them. Then for those who wholeheartedly support the project, yes, I am always I'm a futuristic person, so I try as much as possible to see things from the future. It is a good thing. We can't run away from it. We either implement it.
That's the 12.2% here now.
No,
sorry, that's not the 37.6%.
Yeah. So it's either we implement it now or we keep it and implement it later. But the bottom line is that we're still going to implement it. So the earlier we start implementing it, then begin to manage the challenges that comes from it, the easier it would be for us and those that are coming forward in future. And for those who are
the
50% who are concerned, they share the same sentiments with me. I have a strong sentiment in. I align more with their sentiment with the fact that there are strong infrastructural gaps, and more importantly, this we need to begin to look at the pitfall that will come from implementing this technology. One of it is that you're going to move the security of the exams from the physical phase, which is a physical form of security where someone goes, steals the paper or captures the paper and sends it to a digital phase. Now, the digital phase can now be a single point of failure because where all the exams papers are going to be would be in a particular storage unit, and if that storage unit is breached, all the exams are breached. So we'll begin to look at the security concerns, the digital security concerns that's going to emanate from implementing this technology. We're also going to look at the infrastructural gap. Truth be told, how many schools in the rural area, there are schools in the rural area that have never even seen a system before. And they even offer this subject called computing.
And this is true.
We have to now look at a way of addressing that concern, that infrastructural gaps. But now, this CBT-based exam is going to hold via internet, and we've not even the telecoms providers have not been able to push internet. The internet penetration rate as at now is still roving between 46 to 53%. So the remaining 54 to 43%, or 40 to 54%, what happens to them? So areas where there are no internet and there are secondary schools there that needs to take exams, how do you address that? So these are some of the concerns. And we also need to address the concern of power. These infrastructures need to be powered. So does it not mean that all secondary schools will have a solar power connected to them for the purpose of getting their device powered during these exams? So beyond power, we also have the issues of quantity. So there are schools that have 500 students taking exams at a go. So how do you manage the quantity? Does it mean that you need to have 500 computer sets for the students? So these are concerns that we really
and these are genuine concerns, and they are valid concerns, and I like how you've laid them out, whether generically, but even if we were to take this analysis that you've done on the basis of geopolitical disparity, or better still, let's look at it on a state-by-state readiness level in terms of gaps that currently exist. And for instance, we put Lagos State against a state like Borno on the same scale. You would ordinarily not expect the transition or their transition to happen or to be at the same pace. Because now you've mentioned some of the issues or most of the issues. You've talked, there is the infrastructural reality. True. There's also, if you want to look at it on the basis of equity versus efficiency, then you can then begin to wonder, how can we bridge these physical infrastructural deficits, whether it's in electricity that you've mentioned, whether it's in the internet connectivity gaps that you've talked about, and I'm happy and glad that you talked about schools in the rural areas, schools that are offline, and 80%, if not more, of these rural schools today in Nigeria will be part of this CBT, or rather 100%. But if we were to give a target of, okay, can 80% of these rural schools make this CBT targets in 2027? Is that even viable? How do we prioritize CBT, at the risk of sacrificing inclusivity for perceived progress, especially in communities like you've talked about, these rural communities that are still mostly offline?
Okay, so we are not far from 2020 when COVID-19 hit.
Yes.
Most schools went online.
Yes.
Many public schools couldn't. Was it the fact that the teachers could not operate some of these
Teach virtually.
virtual technologies? That's in a way, but more importantly, the reasons why many public schools could not go online, that they had to use television to begin to teach, was because of lack of this infrastructure. And between that period and now, we've not made a lot of progress when it has to do with closing the infrastructural gap. So it's a major concern. I would say if we want to implement this, it needs to be strategic. I'm very strategic in implementing certain policies, because you can't implement this kind of policy as a nationwide policy. You have to look at it from how tech savvy a region is, okay, or a state is. What's the broadband penetration rate in the state? What's the power efficiency and the power allocation to a state, or power generation capability of a state? These are some of the metrics you put in place, or you put into perspective before you allocate time into the implementation of this kind of policies. Because, for example, like you have said, states like Lagos, that is largely an urban and suburban area, you can easily implement these policies without issues. But if you want to go to states like Borno and some very deep state like Zamfara and states that we have issues of insecurity now, we may not give them the same projection of implementation as we give to Lagos or Ogun or even Edo State. So progressively, when it has to do with technology, the southern part tends to be more efficient with it. So we should look at doing a pilot. That was my suggestion, doing a pilot phase of the project. The committee definitely will sit and deliberate on how best to implement it. But a pilot implementation with a state that has that vast infrastructure, that very limited infrastructural gap would be an approach for me if I'm to recommend.
JAM is already succeeding, as it were. This has been in the can for some time for JAM. It's been in practice, rather, not in the can. It's been in practice. I know the 2025 JAM, I think it's about ended already. Yeah, because it did start sometime last week, and it's CBT based. Yes, there have been challenges. They usually hold like the mock exams. They address some of the challenges that emerge, and then they work on them, and then they have the actual exams. So yes, there are concerns, and they address them. So if we were to use JAM as a sample of what could happen on a much larger scale, national scale, that is meaning not just the unified tertiary matriculation exams, but we're even saying that secondary schools, primary schools, universities, undergraduates, postgraduates would all be using the CBT format, and it becomes a major issue. Yes, please come in. Please.
I am not. I'm not sure if they are interested in primary school for now, because we need to. There are a whole lot of things.
Okay.
All my discussions has been around secondary schools and schools.
Internal exams of schools. I'm telling you honestly, some universities have already transited.
Yes, university is understandable because there are CAN networks. Most universities, most telcos want to set up their infrastructure in universities for the purpose of university students. So universities are not, I don't have concerns with universities transiting. I'm looking more at the lower education arm, like the secondary and the primary.
I get that.
And we can't compare JAM with this. They may be using the same platform, which is the CBT, but the approach of the implementation is completely different. No, JAM is more of like a mobile exam. So you can be, you allow JAM to allocate where you will take the exam. So you just give them an area that you think you're interested. So the way JAM operates is CBT centers register with JAM. And JAM has a database of all CBT centers and the numbers of systems. But in this case, if you're talking about WAEC and internal WAEC, it's going to be the schools.
Yes.
So you are mandated to, as a school, let's say a secondary school that has 500 students, you're mandated to have, you may be mandated to have 500 computers. Because, and JAM again, it's quite different. You're only taking 4 subjects in JAM. Now you're taking like 8, 9, 10 subjects.
In some cases, yes.
The case, you can use, yes, there are, we've seen successes in JAM, and it's a good, it's good we can pick some of the successes and implement here, but we're looking at a larger scale, a more complex scale, and we have to look at it from a different dimension and a different angle.
You know, I understand we're fast approaching the end of our allotted time, so I'll ask one final question just before I let you go, just so it doesn't seem like we're exempting or forgetting that there's a community of people that are also integral that we need to consider in our transition to CBT-based exams. And I'm talking about, you know, the community of persons living with a disability. I mean, in terms of disability accessibility and possible exclusion of students, maybe with virtual or hearing impairment, you know, how do we ensure that the CBT platform integrates the PWD's community by mandating assistive technologies like screen readers maybe or sign language interfaces? You know, shouldn't this be factored alongside whatever plans or transition targets or holistic or phase-by-phase targets or plan that we have, since technology is already replete with assistive applications for persons with disability? Is a holistic approach feasible in this regard?
Yeah, persons with disabilities are actually coming to begin to rest because we are going digital. So there are already technology that assists them. So all I think that needs to be done is for the committee to put into perspective that there are these categories of persons, and one, then they will need to put in measures to ensure that these persons are in a way addressed, or their concerns are addressed during exams. Lastly, I think it's easier for them because they can just, the exams, the questions can begin to put, if we're talking about the major exams, they can begin to just, they can decide to set up a center specifically for persons with disabilities where all these technologies would be, and it would be there, and there will be persons that would assist them in terms of needs. So I don't think they have an issue. Okay. It's just for the committee to ensure that, to know that these persons exist, and these persons needs to be taken care of, especially when it has to do.
They do exist, as a matter of fact, and they do need to be taken care of.
True.
But I've just been told that we could have time for one more question before we go. Okay. So maybe we should look at something in terms of social solidarity. It would seem like you inferred it somewhat earlier in your earlier submission, but you know, could CBT erode communal trust in exams as a shared national ritual, perhaps replacing it with impersonal systems? People say that the computers are, you know, you don't have this person-to-person relations like you have with physical invigilators, for instance, with a computer. You know, so the skepticism of a faceless tech system, you know, versus the seeming, you know, public trust in physical examination, invigilators and paper trail. That's what I'm talking about here. So for you, does trust in technology trump, you know, that psychological readiness or anxiety, whether by students or even instructors in schools, particularly in rural communities across Nigeria?
Well, when it has to do with technology, it has been, that's one of the everything, there's always an other side to a coin. So there are, everything that comes, every advantage that comes with its own disadvantage. So technology, one of the disadvantage of technology is the inability to isolate one and disconnect you from person-to-person communication and physical interaction. So, but one way I think we've been able to manage that is while we have identified that to be a concern, we've also created an industry out of it, and that industry is the social industry.
True.
Where people now want to use every opportunity that they get to meet and mingle, meet and interact. So, yeah, technology has its own effects, but I don't think that's going to, on the long run, we would have to. So it's either we do it now or we do it later. There is no option of not doing it at all. So it's better we start doing it now and we begin to get used to the system
invariably,
and manage.
students, instructors should prepare their mind that the future is here now. It's not coming again. It's already here.
That is the reason why there is now educational technology. Most schools, universities are now offering it as a degree program because technology is now, education it's not isolated. It has now been integrated with technology. So we have to begin to look at how we can, teachers needs to upskill to integrate technology into their teaching skill. Student needs to upgrade to integrate technology into their learning skills. So these are things that we have to do as individuals. We can't just shy away from the fact that we are growing. We are growing, let's embed technology and start using technology so that we get used to it. The more we use, the more you acquaint yourself with the technology. And the easier it is for you to use this technology to create more things because technology is aimed at ensuring that you use it to solve problems. So that's just my take.
Misu Jafaru, IT and security expert, cyber security expert, I beg your pardon. I'd like to thank you so much for coming on Inside. It's been a delight listening to your thoughts on these issues. I'd like to thank you so much indeed. Thank you for coming on our program.
Thank you for having me.
Our next conversation will focus on Nigerians' seeming penchant for Ponzi schemes. Despite repeated warnings and high-profile collapses of these investment schemes, many Nigerians continue to fall victim to fraudulent financial platforms, most of them promising unrealistic returns. These schemes have left thousands in ruins, yet their appeal persists. The question is why? Is it desperation born out of economic hardship? Is it a function of gaps in financial education amongst Nigerians? Or, truth be told, is the powerful lure of quick wealth too strong to resist? In other words, greed. I'll be discussing these issues with my next guest, and together we will look at the major reasons so many Nigerians remain vulnerable to Ponzi schemes, even after countless failures. Let me welcome Tony to the program. Tony Alasi is a financial advisor and coach with MoneyWise International. Good to have you on the program, Tony.
Thank you for having me.
So a quick one. I have an instant poll or survey for you before we begin to unpack all of the many issues.
All right.
I'd like for you to pick one option after my question. And the question is this. What is the primary reason Nigerians remain susceptible to Ponzi schemes despite their frequent failures? Option 1, economic hardship. Option 2, greed, or do I say desire for quick profits? Option 3, lack of financial education or literacy. You have to pick one option, that you think is the primary reason. Which do you pick?
I think it's option 3, the lack of financial education.
Really? Why that particular option?
Well, because if you know if you know the basics for investing, for example, you know that when the risk is still high, I have the tendency to lose my money, then a financially educated person goes in with the consciousness that, this money money I'm about to invest, I'm going to lose it. So if I lose it, I don't feel bad like the government didn't do something or this is wrong. So again, financial education is not just being informed. It's a knowledge. It's a knowledge that equips you with financial intelligence to know that I shouldn't choose this investment. I should choose this one. I should choose that one. So the foundational issue is that a lot of Nigerians are not financially educated. And what does that mean? It means that people don't know how money works.
Well, if you ask me, Tony, because, well, I can't remember, but I think a lot of Nigerians, when we had this poll, because NTA did have a poll that we pushed out there, and I think the answer for a lot of people was economic hardship. And, well, they chose, we reported. But however you look at it, these options that I reeled out earlier, they all spotlight a fractured system, you know, and they reiterate an urgent need for solution.
Yeah.
So, I want us to begin, you know, as we unpack this entire issue now. Let's begin with the issue of moral responsibility and accountability, if we must place blames and where. You know, yes, some will consider participants of Ponzi schemes as victims of exploitation. Some would say, well, they are active risk takers. After all, there's risks in every business that you do.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people will say maybe they are both victims and risk takers. In your opinion, where does accountability lies? And considering the economic precarity, isn't it possible that when it really comes down to it, survivor would always trump rationality?
Okay, while I like to say maybe the government, in terms of accountability, there's economic hardship, for example, things aren't working as they should, and so some people are pushed to go do it. The question I have is, where do you place a medical doctor who is very educated and knows that this shouldn't be, that goes for it?
Isn't that great?
That comes to great. Because when you say a medical doctor, what is the economic hardship that is pushing him? Compared to, I understand that, oh, this is where I want to be, this is not where I am yet, and all of that. But we all go through it. I mean, wealth building is a process, is a journey. So when you see that, when you look at the class of people who fall to these Ponzi schemes, you realize that it's, honestly, I always hold the investors accountable as against the government or any other person.
So that's where you put the blame. That's where the accountability lies.
Yes, it's the investors. I mean, it's simple. I've worked with people that come to me and say, oh, last year I got this amount of money in tens of millions, and I went to put it in an investment that was wrong. This year I discovered that was foolish and I wanted to do something right. So they come to me, I guide them, and their money is safe and secure. That's individual responsibility. Other people are still falling for scams and schemes. So the investors are responsible mostly. While I acknowledge all the issues we have in the economy and all of that, truthfully, even when the economy is booming and all the scams will come up and people will still fall for it. So that investor, I would hold the investors accountable.
Okay, so now let's talk about the policy framework government is putting in place to stop practices like this, and that's the New Investments and Securities Act 2025. You know, it introduces stricter penalties for Ponzi schemes, you know, their operators. You know, prescribes long jail term, I think like 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
10 years,
so
yes. And the SEC has the power to prosecute now.
Wonderful, that's it. You know, and of course, it also targets some other unlawful investment schemes, you know, in Nigeria. For you, what are the key issues, you know, that the law addresses in terms of clamping down on fraud, in terms of enhancing investor protection, and also boosting market confidence?
Well, I think that the main issue is the fact that now there are clearer policies regarding when things like that are identified. For example, before now, the SEC couldn't prosecute, or, you know, when you have to go to, you know, the bureaucracy of, I have to go through this desk, I have to go through this office. By the time you're writing and all of that, the process is a bit long, and then what is to be done has already been done. Also, there's a bit more consciousness and awareness. The other day I was looking at the news and I saw that there's a lot of awareness that is going on from these organizations these days to address issues like this, because now they're more empowered. They hit the streets. They tell people, don't fall for this. This is the number to call. This is the step to take. This is how you can reach out to us easily. Report this here. So I think that shared vigilance amongst all operators and also the government has helped a lot to improve the landscape. Well, we hope that it will improve. Let me put it that way.
Well, talking about this same legal framework, incidentally, it also legitimizes crypto assets, recognizing them as virtual assets now. It's also complicated. Years ago, you remember the CBN outlawed crypto.
Yes.
Now, it's back in effect. So I would say, yes, the new law definitely offers a pathway to economic modernization. Maybe that's the way I would describe it. But then, how does it balance innovation with risk?
Well, the truth of the matter
yes.
is, it's the future.
True.
Blockchain, crypto. So if we're not going to be left behind as a country, we have to catch up. That's the truth. It's here to stay. What we need to have are regulations like this around its operation. So again, if you look at things very well, the investment is not always the issue. The investors are. Crypto, all the different virtual assets you can think of, they are not necessarily the issue. It is how people go about them that is the problem. Again, because it wasn't regulated, it was difficult to, okay, maybe if you steal maybe I wake up in the morning and all my assets, all my virtual assets has disappeared, I can't hold anybody responsible. That is going to change now that it's being regulated and accepted. Regulation is always the issue. So it's here to stay on a global scale.
Globally. And I can tell you for sure, I can tell you for sure that, talking about global scale, I can tell you for sure that there is already a global spotlight on Nigeria's crypto experience or experiment, I should say. And then there is the need, hence the need to play safe, to play fair, and to play square, When it comes, but the thing is this, when it comes to crypto trading, there is potential for increased fraud and scams, even with these regulations that you've talked about, because we're looking at a market or a sector with a very massive and huge volatility rate, seeing how speculation drives that sector. I'm sure you've looked at this new law, you've perused it copiously. Do you think that as a legal framework, it does adequately factor some of these worries out there, and that it is poised to provide effective, the key word, the operational word there being effective enforcement, especially with decentralized assets?
Yeah, so first thing is licensing.
Okay.
So right now, you can't just go ahead to just start and don't get a license. It's not foolproof, because we have companies that have licenses and have gone down, and people still lost monies and all of that, but it makes it better. So the crypto space or blockchain technology is quite volatile and all of that, yet it's supposed to be the most secure if you really study
blockchain technology
properly. So I think it's not the assets, I think it's the people, the company owners who set them up. They make you bring your money, they deceive you, they tell you you will earn this, they tell you will earn that. And they don't tell you that. Now, for example, you should know when a return is consistent, that is a red flag. Every month, a business is able to return 30% to me per month or 100% per month is a red flag. The normal system is that things go up and down. So you see,
like life.
I don't know. I
like
don't know
life is a going concern.
If you've booked investments before, and then your bank writes you and say, we've adjusted this rate effective so dates, because the market changes. So when you have, the problem is not the crypto assets per se, it is the operators or the owners of those companies like the CBEX and all of them who deceive people. And then if you research some of these companies that crash as well, the foundational issue is that they change their underlying business because of the volume of money that comes to them suddenly, because of the lack of character of the owners. they divert funds. And the moment you start to divert funds, there will always be problem.
Let's try and link it back to Ponzi schemes and how our conversation started. I mean, coming from where we are right now, and let's draw the linkages. I have wondered, and I often wonder, you know, especially, you know, since ICT, you know, and we saw the emergence of fintechs and, you know, financial institutions. I just wonder if fintechs, maybe some of these new microfinance platforms and institutions that we see now, you know, and even cooperatives, beg your pardon, if they could prefer community-driven solutions, you know, to this whole issue, maybe by creating workable models, you know, that replaces this allure of Ponzi schemes. Isn't it possible to create business models and make them credible?
By model, you mean that a cooperative should come and tell you you will earn 100% per month
No,
when they cannot actually deliver on that? Because that's the problem here.
You know, isn't it possible to, I've never really participated in any of these Ponzi schemes, but they have this model that they come up with. They'll tell you, oh, this model works, and then you find out at the end of the day that it doesn't work.
Because it doesn't.
Is it possible for fintechs to step in and fill these gaps? Fintechs, microfinance, banks,
okay, let me tell you what happens now.
Okay.
Assuming I'm a fintech and I come into the market today.
And you come up with credible ideas.
I come up with a credible idea. I put out the products. I will be in the market competing with the likes of people saying 100%. Meanwhile, I'm telling you, I can give you 21%, which is the highest you can get today, in a year, not in a month. So it's a bit, I think the problem is that people just need to know that there's a process to wealth building. Investing takes time, or becoming rich takes time, and investing is a journey. There's a destination, you want to be wealthy. Investing is the process, and investments are the things that get you there, like the turns and stops you meet on the way when you're making a journey. So because if I come into the market today, no matter the model, first of all, my model must ensure that I'm profitable, and then also my customers are well taken care of. So if I put out a model in the market, the truth is I can't match 100% per month, except I want to become another Ponzi scheme that will go down in a short while. So the challenges are there. People just need to know that there is no 100% investment per month that will not go down eventually. So if you're going to get into it, know that I'm going into this consciously. I know what I'm doing. Don't act like you didn't know and then they just stole your money. No, I'm sure we're well informed more than that.
You know, as we approach the end of our conversation, I wonder, and that's why I would ask you this, isn't it surprisingly intriguing that in an age of information technology, you know, that's where we are right now, that financial literacy still subsists at an alarmingly low, or maybe let's say average level in Nigeria. I mean, how is it that our system, you know, can, you know, capture the unbanked?
Yeah.
Amidst all of these issues that we're seeing play out, whether with Ponzi schemes and other illegal, fraudulent, you know, schemes out there. What are your thoughts, you know, on, you know, the double? Let me get your thoughts on that before I move on to, you know, to something else, actually.
Okay, so it's going to take a lot of combined efforts. There's going to be a lot of maybe grassroots awareness, a consistent thing. There's going to have to be campaigns created, an advocacy program created for the long term. Because the tendency is there for us as a country to be reactive instead of being proactive. We know that these Ponzi schemes are going to come up. And all these people, no matter how unbanked they are, they fall for them because they also feel like it's their way out of this poverty. Let me become rich and stuff. So the awareness has to be the combined effort of all agencies in question. Banks, governments, public-private partnership, to create campaigns, advocacy programs that will last for a long term to really deal with this menace in the society. It has to be deliberate. It's not something that we react to. We have to be proactive about it.
You know, I'm so glad you brought up the issue of campaigns and advocacy, because that was where I was headed to before I stopped in the track and wanted you to respond to these. So in that regard, I would like your thoughts on what's it's been described as the double role of the social media, and you know how it does amplify the spread of Ponzi schemes, and you know also engages in campaigns or awareness campaigns against them. Do you think that happens at a balanced level? Do you think social media exacerbates the issue or tries to redress the issue per se?
Well, I think it's both ways, even though I feel like the negative is more than the positive for now, because a lot of government organizations may not be engaging social media to the level that is required. So, for example, the campaign I saw was simply on one person's handle. It wasn't circulated around all platforms of government organizations online, which it should be. So I think it's both ways. Like the other show was saying, the other person, guest you had, he was talking about how technology can be for good and at the same time create problems. So yes, social media brings awareness. I go online and I see somebody say, this thing made me this amount in so day, come and join. That's one thing. And then the other day I go online and see somebody like this show, when we share it online, say, oh, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. So it has both advantages and disadvantages. However, I feel like more has to be done in terms of awareness, government, a concerted effort towards creating proper awareness for people to be alert and always guarded against investor education and protection, basically.
On this note, I'd like to, thank you so much. This is a good place to draw the curtain on our conversation. Yes. Of course, the situation is still fluid. We're monitoring the implementation of the new law. Yeah. We're hoping that there'll be stricter implementation, of the new law, just so we get things right. Yes. Tony Alassi, financial advisor and coach with MoneyWise International, thank you so much for coming on our program. I do really appreciate your insight, and I look forward to having you here again sometime real soon.
Thank you very much.
I hope you would oblige us whenever we call on you.
It will be my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Some interesting conversations we've had for this week. But just before we wrap up, I'd like to revisit a conversation I had some time ago on revolutionary technology like artificial intelligence. And now AI is changing the landscape as we know it. Well, not all of the conversation, but just a part of it. My guest, Tidiane Togola, is the founder to Windy, a tech firm operating out of Mali. Let's begin by narrowing the near limitless possibilities of AI, to some of the thematic areas that I know you are very familiar with, that your firm, works around or centers its operations on. And I mean elections and digital economy. Talk to me about the impact of AI in the transformation of elections and maybe the election or election monitoring process, and how extensive these changes are in making elections and public governance more transparent and easier across Africa. And if it's okay by you, while you're reacting to that, you can also talk about AI and how it's digitizing economies across Africa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. AI is let's say at its very early stage in Africa, but even in the world, there is many practices that is possible with kind of experience level at that time. The different technologies still learning. When it comes to Africa and the question of election particularly, AI will play a significant role, particularly when we want to do some data analysis to prevent violence, or even to have a better understanding of the voter trends, or developing policies that better answers to the voter or citizen needs, or developing, taking strategic decision using AI. So it is totally possible today to use the AI for the election, but for the governance in general, because AI, within the amount of data that we collect, AI helps to to facilitate the data analysis and also to facilitate even the decision-making process.
And in terms of digital economy, I mean, these days across African countries and communities, we see governments and public institutions and structures adapting e-commerce, adapting e-wallets for agricultural ventures and even for startups. I mean, how transformative are some of these changes across some communities that you have worked yourself in Africa?
You know, in terms of digital economy, it brings a lot of opportunities. For example, when we take the specific area of agriculture, you know, using AI helps community and academic and researchers to, you know, to develop new products and also to have a better analysis on the of different, you know, different soils. And in addition to that, it helps also in terms of even climate analysis to, you know, to have a better positioning. So AI is a tool that helps the population to, you know, to take a better position. This is some element in agriculture that really help, you know, to even increase the efficiency and the productivity of what we are producing in Africa. So, which is a very good opportunity. AI also can help in terms of health sector, you know, many, for example, for assistance, reproductive assistance system, today, different clinics in Africa, for example, in Mali, we do have some clinics who already are using AI to assist in terms of reproduction, and in Kenya. So this AI technology even is playing a crucial role in terms of health. And but in terms of now business, you know, when we take, for example, a country like Kenya, they are already using AI-driven technology, you know, for mobile payment. For example, M-Pesa today has this possibility, and we have other possibility using AI. The crucial advantage of it is that when you are using AI in your business, it quickly ups. Hello?
Please go ahead. We can hear you clearly.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
We can hear you
so
clearly.
When you are using AI in your business, it gives you a significant assistance in terms of understanding the others. For example, when a new business, let's take, for example, a startup, someone who wanted to address to customer or wanted to understand the trend or the behavior of the customer, when he use the AI, it will definitely help him to have a better view and on the customer need and the customer behavior. So based on that, it will be able to produce. It's also something that is very, you know, it helps to avoid all type of waste of time. You know, you can go very quickly and you can be very efficient in terms of production. So these are some opportunities. I'm not saying like in Africa we will have all the possibility to do it very easily. We still have some challenges. I think we will be talking during this program.
Yes, exactly, because I mean, I hear you and I hear about the possibilities and how even startups can adopt AI-driven initiative to push their business. And I wanted to ask you, I mean, I see from some of your work, not just within the West African region, but across Africa, I would like to tap into your experience and perhaps reference some of what you've done in relation to helping small businesses and startups apply AI in some of what they do. And I know experiences and I know capacity varies from country to country. Like you referenced Kenya and how much Kenya has gone. In terms of capacity, I even know that a country like Mali is reputed to have a robust AI developers community, even more than some communities or countries in West Africa. So in terms of capacity and building capacity, how much so, you know, are we doing to improve adaptation and, you know, in term increase adoption of AI for, you know, for significantly to grow businesses within communities in Africa? in terms of building capacity?
Let's talk about, for example, what Twindy is doing. You know, as Twindy, we are key players in developing solutions. But the truth also is, even if we are playing this role, if we want this to expand in the whole continent, we have some challenges to face too. You know, the first is, you know, to have very good infrastructure that can support AI development. That is important, because if we don't have those infrastructure, today when you go, for example, in rural area, it's very unfortunate to see the gap between the capital city and a rural area. This is the first challenge. The second element, if we want this to be really developed, is to keep working in terms of reinforcing the capacity of AI developers, and also educating the population in general to AI opportunity, and also to AI trend and all the challenges linked to ethical issues.
And that's it for this week. Do join us same time next week for more on Insight. My name is Nnamdi Odipo. I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.